My parents canceled my 18th birthday. Your sister doesn't feel special enough. 3 days before I turned 18, I became the villain of my own family. It wasn't something I saw coming. I wasn't prepared for it. I had spent my entire childhood trying to be good enough, trying to be small enough, trying to take up so little space that no one would notice me and therefore no one would have a reason to push me aside. And yet, somehow, I still ended up in the crosshairs. It was a Tuesday night in late May. The kind of evening where the light hangs around longer than it should, golden and lazy, stretching across the kitchen table like honey. My mom had made my favorite dinner, lemon chicken, the one dish she only ever made on special occasions. The whole house smelled of garlic and citrus and roasted herbs. There was even a candle on the table, a cheap vanilla-scented one from the dollar store, but it was lit and flickering and I thought, foolishly, they remembered. They finally remembered. I was almost happy. That should tell you how naive I was. The chicken hadn't even made it past the salad bowls before my mother cleared her throat. I knew that sound. It was her, I have something important to say and I need everyone's attention, throat clearing. It was the same sound she made before announcing Caitlin's college acceptance, before telling us about Caitlin's new job, before toasting Caitlin's engagement and then, later, before commiserating about Caitlin's breakup. The sound was practically a jingle at this point. Ella, she said, setting down her fork with a deliberate little click, about your birthday party this Saturday. Your father and I have been talking, and we've decided to cancel it. I didn't drop my fork. I didn't gasp. I didn't even blink. I just sat there, suspended in a weird, airless silence, watching her lips move and hearing the words but not quite processing them. My brain had gone offline for a second, like a computer that's been asked to perform an impossible calculation. Cancel. Party. Saturday. Those words didn't belong in the same sentence. They were incompatible, like oil and water, like love and my family. What? I finally managed. My voice sounded small and far away, like it was coming from someone else's throat. Your sister's been having a rough time, my mother repeated, as if I hadn't heard her the first time, as if the problem was my hearing and not the absolute insanity of what she was saying. She and Brian broke up. Work hasn't been great. She feels that if we throw you a big coming-of-age party, it'll just make her feel worse. You know how sensitive she is. She needs us to be mindful of her feelings right now. I turned to look at my sister, Caitlin. 25 years old. Freshly single for all of 2 weeks, 2 weeks in which she'd gotten a new haircut, bought 3 pairs of shoes, gone clubbing twice, and plastered social media with photos of herself looking like a vacation queen. She was pushing salad around her plate with her fork, pretending to be disinterested, but I could see the little smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. She was enjoying this. Of course she was. Mom, I didn't tell you to cancel it, she said, drawing out the words in that sing-song voice she used when she wanted to sound innocent. It was the same voice she'd used our whole childhood, the one that could make even the cruelest thing sound like a suggestion. I just said it feels weird to have a big party when the house is so down lately. Besides, Ella's still young. She can have a normal birthday, right? 18's not 30. Exactly, my dad chimed in. Thomas Mitchell, 30-year veteran of the local bank, a man whose greatest talent was never taking a side. He cleared his throat and wouldn't meet my eyes. Ella, we're a family. Your sister needs support right now. We'll push your birthday back a little, and when she's feeling better, we'll make it up to you. Sound fair? Make it up to me. Sound fair? My 18th birthday. 27 invitations already sent. A cake ordered from the bakery. A $200 deposit on the venue. My best friend Samantha had driven in from out of state just for this, just for me. She'd taken time off work. She'd spent money on gas. She'd told me she was so proud of me for becoming an adult, for finally being 18, for stepping into a new chapter of life. And now this. Make it up. I set my fork down and tried to keep my voice steady. I could feel my hands trembling under the table, my palms slick with sweat. I already sent the invitations. The bakery charges a 50% cancellation fee this close to the date. Sam came all the way back here for me. She has to leave the day after. My mother's forehead creased in that familiar expression, the one that said, "Why do you have to be so difficult?" The one that said, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." The one that said, "Your feelings are an inconvenience." "Samantha's your friend," she said, as if that settled everything. "She'll understand." And the cake, she pulled a receipt from her apron pocket and waved it like a trophy. I already called and canceled. We lost $50 on the deposit, but I got the other $150 back. See? Your mom took care of it. She took care of it. She took care of my birthday like it was a chore on her to-do list, like it was a bill she'd paid and could now forget about. She took care of it the way you'd take care of a stain on the carpet or a broken appliance, with efficiency, with detachment, with no consideration for the fact that it was my life she was dismantling piece by piece. I looked at that receipt, then at Caitlin, who was now openly smirking. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. That smile said everything. See? You'll never win. You'll never be more important than me. You'll never matter the way I matter. My brother Liam, 15, sat through the entire exchange with his headphones on, staring at his phone, thumbs flying across some game. He never looked up. He never did. No matter how bad the storm got in our house, he always found a way to disappear into his little digital bubble, to tune out the noise, to pretend that nothing was happening. I used to envy him that ability. Now I just felt alone. I sat there while the lemon chicken went cold on my plate, the fat congealing into a white film. A strange feeling rose up from my stomach, not hurt, not anger, but something else. Something cold and clear. Something that felt like a door closing in my chest, like the last light going out in a house that had been dark for years. And in that moment, it clicked. In this family, I had never been a person. I was a backdrop. A prop in Caitlin's one-woman show. A cheap tool my mother used to maintain the illusion of a happy family. I could get straight A's and hear, "Don't get too cocky, look at your sister." I could win second place in the state horticulture competition and get a pat on the back, a good job. But when Caitlin got a permanent position at her internship, champagne. The whole house. Always the same. Her feelings were world news. My life was a footnote. Her breakup meant collective mourning. My coming of age could be pushed back. Her happiness was a cause for celebration. My achievements were an afterthought. Her drama was a crisis. My existence was an inconvenience. I thought about all the birthdays I'd sat through while the spotlight was on her. All the holidays where she got the best presents, the most attention, the biggest slice of cake. All the times I'd been told to be quiet, to be patient, to wait my turn. And now my turn had come, my 18th birthday, the one that was supposed to be mine, and they were taking that too. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Through the wall, I could hear Caitlin playing music and humming along, loud enough to wake the dead. I heard her on the phone with a friend. "Yeah, my mom canceled her party." I swear, you should have seen her face, like she'd swallowed a bug. She laughed, that bright, careless laugh that had always come so easily to her, the laugh of someone who had never had to fight for anything in her life. I rolled over and pressed my pillow against my face. At first, I didn't cry. I was just tired. A bone-deep exhaustion that seeped out of every joint, that made my limbs feel heavy and my chest feel hollow. Then something inside me snapped, and the tears came, hot, fast, unstoppable. I bit the edge of my pillow to keep quiet, to keep them from hearing, to keep them from having one more thing to use against me. Through the wall, the music, the laughter, my dad's occasional cough, my mother clattering dishes in the kitchen downstairs, all of it blended into one thick blanket, smothering me. I thought about every time I'd made myself smaller to make room for Caitlin's drama. Every time I'd swallowed my own excitement because she needed the spotlight. Every time I'd told myself it was okay, she was older, she needed more, I could wait. I'd been waiting my whole life. And now I was being told to wait through my own 18th birthday. At 2 in the morning, the house went silent. I got up, opened my closet, and started packing. There wasn't much to take. A few changes of clothes. My gardening tools, a pair of pruning shears, a small trowel, a pair of gloves that still smelled like last summer's soil. My notebook, filled with sketches and plans and dreams I'd never shared with anyone. And 3 things that mattered more than anything. First, a rusty old coffee tin I'd kept under my bed since I was 14, stuffed with every dollar I'd ever saved. Babysitting, lawn mowing, summer stock at the grocery store, bit by bit, it had grown to $3,640. I'd been saving for a decent laptop for college. I'd counted it 100 times, each coin and bill a small victory, proof that I could build something on my own. Proof that I didn't need them. Second, a shoebox my grandmother had left me. My mother's mother. The only person in this family who'd ever truly favored me. Before she passed last year, she'd pressed this box into my hands. Inside were her prized dahlia tubers, deep purple red, flowers the size of dinner plates, from a strain she'd cultivated for 30 years. "Ella," she'd said, her voice thin and raspy but fierce, "you're the only one I trust with these. They're more loyal than people. You give them love, they give you flowers." I'd held that box like it was made of glass. I still did. Third, a folded lease agreement. Carter, my grandmother's old friend, had jokingly offered me his abandoned nursery plot when I was 16. "When you're grown, I'll rent you that patch cheap," he'd said. I'd taken him seriously and made him sign it. The land was out by the old mill, half a mile from town, a patch of wasteland with collapsed fencing and greenhouse plastic that hung in tatters. The lease was 5 years at $50 a year. Back then, I'd thought it was just a fun idea, a little garden of my own, a place to put the seeds I'd collected, a project to keep me busy. I never imagined it would become my only escape route. But now, looking at that lease in the dim light of my bedroom, I realized it was the only thing I had. The only thing that was truly mine. I stuffed 2 duffel bags until the zippers strained. My hands were shaking, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. If I stopped, I'd think, and if I thought, I'd stay. And if I stayed, I'd disappear. I'd become so small that one day I'd wake up and there'd be nothing left of me at all. I crept downstairs, as quiet as a thief, careful to skip the creaky 3rd step from the bottom. In the living room, I spotted the bakery receipt my mother had tossed on the coffee table. I picked it up, folded it, and put it in my pocket. I don't know why. Maybe so I'd have proof. Maybe so I'd never forget. Maybe because I wanted something to hold on to, something to remind me that this was real, that I wasn't making it up, that they really had done this to me. At the foot of the stairs hung our family portrait. I was maybe 10 in it, pigtails, gap-toothed grin, Caitlin's arm draped over my shoulder, my parents standing behind us. 4 smiling faces. Picture perfect. Looking at it now, I could see the cracks beneath the surface. The way my mother's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The way my father's hand rested on Caitlin's shoulder but not on mine. The way I was leaning in, trying so hard to be part of something that had never really included me. I looked at it for 5 seconds. Then I pulled the front door open and walked out. May in Minnesota. The wind cut like a knife even at night. I trudged down the empty streets, dragging 2 heavy bags, my shadow stretching long under the streetlights. The coffee tin clinked in my pocket. I clutched the shoebox to my chest like a life raft. The air smelled of wet earth and new leaves, the promise of spring, the hope of something growing. I held on to that smell. I held on to it like it was the only thing keeping me upright. I didn't cry. From the moment I stepped out that door, I'd made myself a promise. Ella, you are done crying over these people. They don't deserve it. They never have. You've given them 18 years of your life, 18 years of trying to be good enough, and they've shown you exactly what you're worth to them. So no more. From now on, you cry for yourself. For the things you're going to build. For the life you're going to make. Not for them. Never again for them. It took me nearly 2 hours to reach the nursery. The sky was just starting to lighten on the horizon, a thin layer of mist clinging to the ground like a veil. Dew soaked my sneakers and the cuffs of my jeans. The place was even more wrecked than I remembered, chain link fence sagging and twisted, a whole section collapsed and tangled with dead vines. 3 greenhouse frames, rusted skeletons with plastic sheeting that had shredded to ribbons, flapping in the wind like some ghost clapping its hands. The ground was a mess of gravel, dry weeds, thistles, broken glass. Every step crunched and scraped like I was walking on the bones of something that had died a long time ago. The only structure still intact was a toolshed. Wooden, maybe 100 square feet, with 3 or 4 holes in the roof but a door that still shut. I dragged my bags inside. The smell hit me first: must, old burlap, and something faintly animal. Rat droppings, probably. Old potato sacks and rusted wire coils were piled in corners. A dried-up wasp nest hung from a rafter like a desiccated piñata. The floor was packed dirt, hard and cold. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in that stale air, and thought, this is it. This is where I live now. This is what my life has become. A toolshed with a hole in the roof and the ghost of someone else's dreams. I grabbed the only usable thing I could find, a broom with a cracked handle, and swept out a patch of floor. I laid down the tarp I'd brought. That was my bed. I stowed my bags, found a dry corner for the shoebox, and repacked the tubers in fresh moss. Then I sat on that tarp, knees pulled up, and watched the light grow through the crack in the door. 5:30. By now, my mother would be starting breakfast. The smell of eggs and bacon drifting up from the kitchen. Caitlin would be hogging the bathroom for 40 minutes while I bounced on one foot outside the door. My father would be sipping coffee and watching the morning news. Liam would be sprinting out the door at the last possible second to catch the bus. None of that was mine anymore. None of it had ever really been mine. I'd just been borrowing space in their lives, and now I'd finally stopped borrowing. Now I was starting something that belonged to me. I took a breath, fished $20 out of the coffee tin, and stood up. I grabbed that busted broom and walked toward the wasteland. The reality was 100 times worse than I'd imagined. The broom couldn't even scratch the surface. Eventually, I found a hoe, rusted solid, the blade so dull it might as well have been a hammer. I swung it down. It bounced off the packed earth with a dull thunk, sending a shock up my arms that numbed my hands. I gritted my teeth and kept swinging. The ground was like concrete. Every strike took everything I had. Within 2 hours, my palms were blistered raw. By the afternoon, the blisters had burst, blood and dirt smeared across my hands, stinging like fire. I stopped, sat on a ridge of upturned soil, and stared at my ruined hands. Then I buried my face in my knees and cried. Not from hurt. From fury. At myself. For being so useless that I couldn't even turn a patch of dirt. For not being strong enough to make them regret everything. For spending 18 years as a doormat, too gutless to slam the table when my own mother canceled my birthday. For being so weak that I'd let them convince me I was nothing. I cried until I was empty. Then I got up, rinsed my hands with water from a rusty bucket, tore strips off an old t-shirt to wrap them, and kept going. Day 1. Day 2. Day 3. Nights in the tool shed, wrapped in the thin blanket I'd brought, the wind knifing through the holes in the roof. Cold that got into my marrow, that made my teeth chatter and my joints ache. I'd brought a few packs of crackers and a bottle of water. They lasted 2 days. By the 3rd day, I was so desperate I walked into town, bought the cheapest loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter at a corner store, and sat on a bench outside, wolfing it down until I nearly choked. I sat there for a while, watching people go by. No one noticed me. I was invisible, just another teenager with no place to go. An old woman walked past with a small dog, and the dog wagged its tail at me. I reached down and scratched its head. For a second, the world felt a little less cold. For a second, I felt like someone saw me. On the walk back, I saw Carter. He was on his rattletrap bicycle, and he slowed when he saw me, squinting through the dusk. Ella? Is that you? He was in his 70s, white-haired, lean as a fence post, with a back that stayed straight despite his age. A face like a walnut, weathered and lined and full of stories. He'd been a close friend of my grandmother's, used to come by for tea, used to bring her cuttings from his garden, used to sit on the porch and talk for hours about things I was too young to understand. When I was a kid, he'd given me a miniature gardening set. I still had it somewhere. I'd never thrown it away, even though I'd outgrown it years ago. What are you doing out here? He got off his bike and looked me up and down. His eyes landed on my bandaged hands, my mud-caked clothes, my hollow face. I could see the recognition dawning. He knew something was wrong. I opened my mouth. I'd meant to say something casual, just messing around, no big deal, but what came out was a mess. Carter, I left. They canceled my birthday, so I left. I'm staying in your tool shed. Is that, can I, just for a while? The words spilled out in no order, tumbling over each other like they were trying to escape. But Carter didn't ask questions. He just looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Your grandmother told me you were stubborn." He patted my shoulder. His hand was rough as sandpaper, warm and steady. "Come on. Let's get you a hot meal." That afternoon, I had the best beef stew of my life at Carter's kitchen table. He didn't press me for details. I didn't offer any. We just sat there, the silence comfortable between us, while I ate like I hadn't seen food in weeks, because, honestly, I hadn't. After I'd eaten, he found me a roll of gauze and some iodine, cleaned my hands properly, and dug out an old kerosene lamp and a wobbly little camp stove. "Take these," he said. "No power out there. At least you'll have hot water." I clutched those things to my chest, and my eyes burned, but I didn't cry. I was done crying. I was done being weak. I was going to make this work if it killed me. Carter came out to the nursery several more times after that. He fixed the shed door, stuffed old newspapers into the gaps between the wall planks, and threw an old canvas tarp over the roof to keep the rain out. He brought me some of his late wife's old pots and pans. He never asked when I was going home. He never told me I should go back. He just helped. "I knew your grandmother for over 40 years, he said one afternoon, kneeling beside me to hammer a loose board. Before she passed, she told me, if Ella ever finds herself in trouble, help her if you can. She said you were the one she worried about most. She said you had the same fire she did. The same stubbornness. The same refusal to give up." I sat next to him, gripping a nail so hard it bit into my palm. "I'll pay you back, Carter. Everything. I promise." He looked up and grinned. "Forget it. Just grow something on that patch of dirt for me. That'll be payment enough." Summer came, slower than I'd expected, steadier than I'd hoped. I set a routine: up at 5, work until noon, then go into town for odd jobs, weeding, dog walking, sweeping porches, anything to bring in a few dollars. Back to the land in the evening, more digging, more clearing, until dark drove me into the toolshed. By the dim light of the kerosene lamp, I read gardening books, took notes, memorized everything I could about soil pH and bloom cycles and frost dates. I filled notebooks with sketches of garden layouts, lists of plants, schedules for planting and pruning and harvesting. I was building a future, one page at a time. My hands healed and tore and healed again. By the end of the second month, the calluses were thick enough that blisters stopped forming. My skin had darkened to a deep brown, the kind that comes from real sun, from hours spent bent over the earth. My arms had gone wiry with muscle. I was thinner, but I had more energy than I'd ever had. I felt alive in a way I'd never felt at home. That frozen ground, I spent 6 weeks just on the first proper bed. Maybe 200 square feet, small as it was, but I'd broken every clod by hand, sifted the rocks out, mixed in sand and compost I'd hauled from the riverbank one wheelbarrow load at a time. I rubbed each soil clump between my fingers until it was fine as powder. I talked to the ground while I worked, whispered encouragement to the worms I found, thanked the earth for its patience. Late May, I planted my grandmother's dahlia tubers. I dug each hole, mixed in the starter fertilizer, nestled the tuber in, covered it, watered it. Every step done exactly as she'd taught me. I knelt in the dirt and patted the soil flat with my palm. When I finished the last one, I sat back and looked at the damp patch of earth. "Grandma," I whispered. "Your turn." Then I stood up, brushed the dirt off my hands, and planted another row of sunflowers. That was when Megan Harris drove into my life. She was a freelance photographer, early 30s, short hair, round glasses, a beat-up blue pickup coated in dried mud. She was driving past one afternoon and saw me staking the dahlia seedlings. She slowed, stopped, got out. "Holy crap," she said, crouching at the edge of the bed. "You grew these? In this dirt?" I looked at her warily and nodded. I was used to people not taking me seriously, used to them assuming I was just playing around. She took off her glasses, wiped them, put them back on, and surveyed the wreckage around us. "Are you in AG school? Are your parents farmers?" "No," I said. "I just like it." "Like it?" She stood up, brushing off her knees. "This place has been dead for years. Carter told me about it. The old nursery went bust before I moved here." "You're doing this alone?" I nodded again. She was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled a camera out of her bag, a professional DSLR with a lens bigger than my fist. Let me take some shots. These seedlings are gorgeous. I sell to stock photo sites. I'll split whatever I make with you. I hesitated, then agreed. Megan spent the whole afternoon shooting, lying on the ground to get low angles, clicking away like she was on assignment for a magazine. She moved around the seedlings like she was dancing, patient and precise. Before she left, she tried to stuff a $100 bill into my pocket. Location fee, she insisted. I fought her on it, but she won. She hopped in her truck and sped off. I used that $100 to buy 3 packets of seeds, sunflowers, cosmos, bachelor's buttons, and 2 bags of organic fertilizer. After that, Megan showed up every few days. To shoot, and sometimes just to help, even though she was hopeless at weeding. She'd pull up the flowers along with the weeds. When she heard my story, she cursed like a sailor. Your parents are insane. Who cancels their kid's 18th birthday? Is your sister the Queen of England? I just laughed and told her I didn't want to think about revenge. She looked at me. Bullshit. You think about it. I can see it in your face. She wasn't wrong. But I wasn't ready to admit it yet. By late August, the dahlia buds started to show. I spent those days checking them constantly, measuring them with my eyes, willing them to grow. I'd kneel in the dirt and talk to them, tell them they were beautiful, tell them they could do it, tell them I believed in them. It sounds crazy, but it helped. It helped me feel connected to something bigger than myself. The first bloom opened on the 2nd week of September. Purple red, bigger than my hand, layered petals curving like rippled silk. In the morning light, it glowed. I crouched in front of it, breathless. A 30-year-old strain, grown from my grandmother's hands, now blooming in ground that had been dead for years. I reached out and touched a petal. Soft as satin. For a second, I reached for my phone, ready to call her, "Grandma, look, your flowers are blooming," before I remembered. She was gone. I crouched there, tears pouring down my face, but I was smiling too. Laughing and crying like a crazy person. The flowers were here. She was gone. But she'd left me this. She'd trusted me with her legacy, and I'd kept my promise. Megan arrived that afternoon and screamed when she saw the bloom. I thought she'd ruptured my eardrum. She shot it for 2 hours. That batch of photos sold to 2 gardening magazines. She sent me $800. That was my first real money from the flowers. I used that $800 to recover the greenhouse with fresh plastic, buy a batch of autumn seeds, chrysanthemums, asters, ornamental peppers, and get a used push mower. The place finally started to look like something. It started to feel like mine. By October, I had 3 full nursery beds and 2 functioning greenhouses. The sunflowers had grown into a solid wall of gold, over 6 feet tall, standing like sentinels along the border. Chrysanthemums in white, yellow, and purple clustered in dense, cheerful patches. Cosmos and cornflowers were running wild along the pathways, a scatter of pinks and blues. The whole place smelled of earth and green things and the faint sweetness of late-blooming flowers. I started selling at the town farmers market. The first week, I was so nervous I couldn't stop fidgeting. But by Sunday evening, 15 sunflower bouquets and 20 wildflower mixes had all sold. $170 in profit. At home, I smoothed out every bill, counted every coin, 3 times over. Then I dropped them into the coffee tin and listened to the clink of metal on metal. Best sound in the world. Word travels fast in a small town. By October, everyone had heard some version of my story. The most common one was that I'd run away from home, teenage rebellion, you know how it is. My mother's social circle, I heard, spent their tea afternoons shaking their heads. Kids these days, they'd sigh. My mother's line was always the same, delivered with a practiced martyr's sigh, she'll come back when she's had enough. We just have to wait. I heard that from a cousin who worked at the beauty parlor down the street. I didn't cry. I just made myself a promise. I stopped waiting. No more waiting for them to miss me. No more waiting for an apology. No more waiting for a world where they'd finally say, Ella, we were wrong. I had waited 18 years. I got a canceled birthday and a, she'll come back when she's tired of being stubborn. So I stopped. I built my own garden. From that night on, I stopped looking back. Winter came like a hammer. One morning in late October, I woke to a world of white. Snow had fallen overnight, silent and thick. I sat at the door of the toolshed, wrapped in my blanket, watching the flakes drift down. My breath puffed in little clouds. The cold was bone deep, but I didn't mind it. It reminded me I was alive. The dahlias had gone dormant. I'd already dug up the tubers and stored them in fresh moss, back in the shoebox. The chrysanthemums were cut back and mulched. The greenhouse still held a few rows of hardy ornamental kale, purple and green against the snow. Winter meant slow time, but not idle time. Carter helped me put up a small prefab cabin next to the nursery, not huge, maybe 200 square feet, but it had a glass window and a space heater. I bought a used cot, a second-hand desk, a creaky chair. No more sleeping on the ground. All winter, I holed up in that cabin reading, researching, planning. I checked out every gardening book the town library had. I took an online community college course in basic accounting and marketing. Once a week, I'd bike into town to use the library Wi-Fi, downloading PDFs and articles to read by lamplight. I filled 3 notebooks with plans and budgets and dream designs for the garden. My savings had grown to over $6,000. If I could expand next spring, I could afford new bulbs, another greenhouse renovation, and maybe hire part-time help. In the middle of that winter, I did something I hadn't planned. I wrote Carter a formal promissory note. $3,000 borrowed, with repayment terms and interest rates, signed and dated. He looked at it and laughed. You serious? Dead serious, I said. You helped me out of kindness. I won't leave you holding the bag. He shook his head and folded the paper carefully into his wallet. You're just like your grandmother. I smiled and went back to my spreadsheets. Snow fell silently outside. The heater hummed. My desk was covered in charts and seed catalogs. It was the warmest winter of my life. Spring came fast. As soon as the snow melted, I started turning the ground again. The soil was softer now, last year's work had paid off. I'd also leased the adjacent plot last fall, my land had nearly tripled in size. March meant tulips and hyacinths. April, sunflowers and lavender. May, transplanting dahlias and chrysanthemums. I hired 2 local high school kids, Amy and her brother Chris, who worked hard and never complained. Carter came by every few days, sat on a stump, smoked his pipe, and gave gruff advice. Megan's stock photos brought in orders. A boutique hotel in Minneapolis sent their buyer down. She signed me to a monthly contract on the spot. My online shop was small but growing, mostly from Megan's beautiful photos. By late spring, I'd moved into a proper little cabin. Carter's friends had framed it up cheap. Tiny kitchen, bathroom, a bed that didn't sag, and a porch just big enough for 2 chairs. Early May, I sat on that porch watching the sunset paint the fields gold, lavender scent drifting on the warm breeze, the dahlia buds swelling. I held my tea and caught my breath. A year ago, I'd been sleeping in a toolshed with bleeding hands and $3,600 to my name. Now I had a 6-person crew, 3 functioning greenhouses, a hotel contract, an online store, and over $7,000 in the bank. Grandma, I thought. Look what your flowers did. I looked down at my own hands, scarred, calloused, dirt permanently embedded in the cuticles. But those hands had turned a wasteland into a garden. They'd built something from nothing. They'd proved that I could survive. Mid-May. A letter came. Pale purple envelope, gold embossing. My mother's handwriting. I opened it. Grandma's 80th birthday party, scheduled for May 20th. The venue listed was the Mitchell family backyard, but a note was penciled in below: if weather is good, we'll hold it at the old nursery. Ella's garden, I think they call it now. I hear it's lovely. I stood on my porch, holding that letter, lavender blowing around me. They knew. They'd known all along. They knew I'd turned this place around. They knew it was beautiful. They'd never come to see me, never asked if I was okay, never offered $1. But they knew about my garden, and now they wanted to use it. Save money on a venue. Show off. Tell the relatives, see? Our Ella may have run off, but she's still one of us. Her flowers are family property, aren't they? I read that letter 3 times. Then I wadded it up and threw it in the trash. 3 minutes later, I pulled it out again. Flattened it. Reread it. May 20th. The 1-year anniversary of the night I walked out. An idea started forming in my head. Just a pinprick at first, then swelling, growing sharper, clearer. All right, I thought. Come. If they wanted to come to my place, they could come. There were some things that needed to be said. Face to face, once and for all. That night, I barely slept. Moonlight fell across the garden, catching the dahlia buds as they swayed in the breeze. I stared at the cabin ceiling, running the plan over and over in my head. The more I thought, the calmer I got. I was no longer scared. I was ready. First thing in the morning, I called Megan. You free on May 20th? Another shoot? No. I paused. My parents are coming here. For my grandmother's birthday. The silence on her end lasted 5 full seconds. Then, what? No. No, you're going to tell them no, right? You are. I'm going to let them come. Have you lost your damn mind? After what they did. I haven't forgotten a second of it, I said. That's why they're coming. I've got a plan. Megan caught the tone in my voice. She'd known me a year. When I went quiet like this, something was up. What are you going to do? She asked, low. Just make sure you bring your camera. Good zoom. Can you do that? She was quiet for a long second. I'll be there. I called Carter next. I need you on May 20th. Just to keep things from getting out of hand. He took a long drag on his pipe. Trouble coming? About 30 people, I said. I'll handle it. Just be there in case. He laughed. I wouldn't miss it. That week, I prepared. I manicured the garden. Every bed edged. Every path raked. The dahlias were at peak bloom, purple-red dinner plates heavy with morning dew. I made sure the place was so beautiful that no one could find a flaw. I put up signs everywhere: Ella's Garden, founder, Ella Mitchell. At every entrance, I set up a display rack with my brand booklets. They showed the timeline, photos of the wasteland, the toolshed, my bleeding hands, the first blooms. Each image was dated. The back page listed my online store and included a quote from a local paper where I'd explicitly stated, "I built this with no financial support from my family." Every guest at the party would get one. I also checked the deed. Last month, I'd finally bought the land outright. The moment the papers were signed, I'd felt something settle in my chest. This was mine. Fully. No one could tell me otherwise. I also reached out through Megan to a local lifestyle blogger, a friend of hers. I invited her to shoot an event at Ella's garden on May 20th. She accepted. Finally, I wrote my mother a reply. A short note, on my branded letterhead, "The garden is available for use. Entry after 10 a.m. Please bring your own food, drink, and seating. Venue only." I sealed it, stamped it, and mailed it. I wasn't doing them a favor. I was setting the stage. May 20th. Cloudless, brilliant blue sky. I woke at 5:30 and walked every row. The dahlias were perfect. The paths were swept. The displays were stacked. Megan arrived at 8 with her camera, and with her friend Tara, the lifestyle blogger, a sharp-looking girl with a bob cut. "Tara's going to wander around," Megan said. "She'll be subtle. But she'll stay near your family." Good. And Megan, get close-ups of my mom, dad, and sister. Watch their faces. She gave me a thumbs up. Then she paused. "You ready for this, Ella? After today, there's no going back." I smiled. I left that path a year ago. The first cars arrived at 10. My uncle and his family. A few cousins. A cluster of my grandmother's old friends. They got out, looked around, and the same expression hit every face: shock. "Wasn't this place a dump last year? Ella did all this? Look at those dahlias. I've never." I stood at the gate in clean jeans, a flannel shirt, hair braided back, greeting people. The way they looked at me had changed. I wasn't the difficult youngest child anymore. I could see it in their eyes: respect. Cautious, but real. At 10:30, my father's old Ford pulled up. My mother stepped out first, wearing a champagne-colored skirt suit, wide-brimmed sun hat, white pumps. Makeup flawless. She surveyed the garden with a slow turn, and her lips curved into a satisfied smile. "See?" it said. "It's still ours." My father followed. Suit, tie, everything proper. He looked at the flowers, his face twitching, but he said nothing. Last came Caitlin. White bodycon dress. Stilettos, totally wrong for dirt. Her hair was in glossy waves, her makeup was heavy, her false lashes looked like butterfly wings. She stepped out, wrinkled her nose at the dust, and immediately pulled out her phone, spinning for video. "Hey, guys, I'm at my sister's garden for my grandma's birthday." She was all sweetness for the camera. "Look at all these flowers. Beautiful, right? My sister grew them. Isn't that cool?" I watched from behind a row of dahlias and clenched my fists. In her live stream chat, I could imagine the comments: "Gorgeous. Wow. You must be so proud," and then she'd say, "Yeah, she's just kind of a hobbyist, you know? But the family supports her." I walked away. Not yet. By noon, the crowd had grown to nearly 30. My mother had brought a whole picnic setup: long tables, white linens, folding chairs, stemware, a small Bluetooth speaker for ambient music. She directed cousins to arrange everything. She ordered my father to haul the drinks. She posed Caitlin against the flowers for photos. I stood by the toolshed, drinking water, watching. My garden. My land. And they were setting up like it was their backyard. No one asked, "Is this spot okay? Or can we put the table here?" My mother just assumed. Grandma arrived around 11. Wheelchair, with an aide pushing her. I rushed over, knelt beside her, and took her hand. She was 80 now, white-haired, deeply lined, but her eyes still sharp. When she saw me, they brightened. Her thin fingers gripped mine. "Ella," she said, her voice trembling just slightly. "You grew my flowers." "Look, Grandma," I said, my throat tight. "Your dahlias. All of them. Right there." She followed my gaze to the patch of purple-red, blazing in the midday sun. She looked for a long time. Then she leaned close to my ear, and her voice dropped. "What are you planning to do?" I froze. I hadn't told her. "Ella," she whispered, "I raised your mother. I know her better than anyone. She didn't come here for my birthday. She came to take credit for your flowers." She squeezed my hand. "Whatever you need to do, I'm with you." I rested my forehead against her palm and nodded. At noon, my mother stood up, clinked her glass, and called for attention. The crowd gathered. I stayed at the back, arms crossed, leaning against a trellis. "Thank you all for coming," my mother said, beaming. "Today is special, not just for my mother's 80th birthday, but because our Ella has come home." Scattered applause. A few murmurs. My mother looked at me, gestured with her glass. "Ella, come here. Let everyone see you." I didn't move. Her smile flickered, but she pressed on. She was a little rebellious, as teenagers can be. But family is family, and today she's opened her garden to us. That means she still loves us. Let's raise our glasses, to my mother's health, and to family unity. People clinked and cheered. Caitlin was still live streaming, whispering into her phone, "So sweet. Everyone's together." My sister came home. Came home. Those two words hit me like a slap. The same house that had canceled my birthday. The same house that hadn't called once in a year. The same house where my mother told the neighbors I'd come back when I was done being stubborn. I set my water glass down and stepped forward. The crowd was still clinking and laughing. I walked through them, up to the front of the table, and stood beside my mother. "Mom," I said. "I'd like to say a few words." She turned, surprised, then wary. She knew I didn't speak up in crowds. "Ella, we haven't cut the cake yet. Could it wait?" "No," I said. "I think now is the perfect time." My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Conversations died. Faces turned toward me. Caitlin's phone shifted. She was still filming, her forehead creased. My mother's smile was starting to crack. "Ella, let's talk privately." "Right here is fine." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded stack of papers. The deed transfer. My tax return. I held them up. "Everyone," I said, "first, welcome to Ella's garden." I want to correct one thing my mother just said. I didn't come home. I gave permission for this garden to be used for my grandmother's birthday. My mother's face went white. "Ella. This land," I went on, "a year ago, looked like this." I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos I'd taken that first week: collapsed fence, shredded greenhouse, toolshed with holes in the roof. I held it up so the front rows could see. I slept in that toolshed. Winter and summer. I turned this ground with bleeding hands. I held up my palms, showing the scars, the calluses. I started with $3,600 I'd saved since I was 14. I never took a cent from my family. These, I held up the tax form, are my own earnings. On file with the county. You could have heard a pin drop. People were exchanging looks. My aunt's mouth hung open. My grandmother was the only one smiling. I agreed to let you use my garden, I said, turning to my mother, not because I want to be part of your happy family. I did it for Grandma. She's the only one who ever saw me. She gave me these flowers. Her birthday, I'll give her my best. My eyes swept across my father, then Caitlin. But I will not let my work be rewritten as family support. And I will not let anyone use my garden to perform a lie about family harmony. I raised my voice a little. From today forward, my parents and my sister are not allowed on Ella's garden property without my written permission. That's the law. This land is mine. I have every right. My father stood up, red-faced. Ella, we're family. Dad, I said, we were family when you canceled my birthday. We were family when you watched me walk out at 2 in the morning. We were family when I was in this toolshed with my hands bleeding and no one came. So don't talk to me about family now. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. You're here because my flowers are beautiful, I said. Because you can show them off. Well, I'm not your showpiece. Not anymore. Caitlin snapped. She lowered her phone and stepped forward, her voice sharp and shrill. You're being such a brat. Mom worked so hard on this. Caitlin, I said, turning to her, you called your friend the night before my birthday and said my face was like she swallowed a bug. You posted, leave the people who drain you, about me. You're on live stream right now saying I came home. Go ahead. Tell your audience how I came home. Tell them about my bleeding hands. Tell them about the toolshed. Tell them you took my birthday so you could feel special. Her face went white as paper. Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly. I looked at the crowd. My 18th birthday was cancelled because Caitlin didn't feel special enough. I gave that up. I walked out. Not because I was rebellious, because I realized I would always come last in that house. Silence. Then I faced my mother. I don't need your apology. But I won't perform your family drama. Please take your things and your people, and leave my garden. My mother's face was gray under her makeup. Her lips quivered. Ella Mitchell, you will regret this. I already do, I said. I regret not leaving sooner. Caitlin burst into tears, loud, ugly sobs. Her heel caught in the gravel, she staggered, nearly dropping her phone. Mom. She's insane. She's kicking us out. My mother grabbed her arm, then rounded on my father. Thomas. Say something. My father just stood there, suit and tie perfect, looking hollow. He glanced at the crowd, at Carter leaning against the shed with a smirk, at Megan's camera. He opened his mouth, closed it, and finally said, "Let's go." Go. She's humiliating us. But no one was listening to her anymore. People were folding chairs. My aunt came up to me, squeezed my arm, and whispered, "You deserved better." She walked away. It took them 20 minutes to pack up. Caitlin cried the whole time, mascara running in black rivers, one false eyelash peeling off. My father loaded the drink boxes in silence. My mother worked with jerky movements, her spine rigid, refusing to look at me. At the end, standing by her car door, my mother finally looked back. Her eyes were full of hate and hurt and something else I couldn't name. I met her stare without flinching. The car pulled away. Dust billowed. I stood in the center of my garden and watched them vanish. The wind moved through the dahlias. Purple-red petals swayed, catching the light. A long silence. Then Grandma's voice, "Ella, push me over to those flowers." I turned, knelt beside her wheelchair. She took both my hands, her grip thin but firm. "Good girl," she said. "Some family is for loving. And some needs to be taught a lesson." I leaned into her lap. The tears came then, but I was smiling. Megan crouched beside me, holding up her phone. The live stream had exploded with comments. Caps lock applause. Heart emojis. People asking for the garden's address. I laughed through the tears. Carter ambled over, placed a heavy hand on my head. "Beef stew tonight," he said gruffly. "My place." "You're coming." I looked up at him, my nose running, my cheeks wet. "Carter. Don't argue." He waved and walked off. But I saw the smile. The rest of the afternoon, I sat with Grandma under the trees. Tea. Lemon cake. She told me about her young days, when she was first learning to grow dahlias, how she'd built her collection one tuber at a time. How those flowers were more loyal than people. I sat on the grass, leaning against her knees, and listened. The canceled birthday. The frozen ground. The toolshed. The bleeding. It all felt like something that had happened to someone else. I had flowers. I had Grandma. I had Carter. I had Megan. I had a garden I'd built with my own hands. This was my home. The video from that day went viral within 72 hours. Tara's livestream clips were cut and reposted everywhere. Teen's family canceled her 18th birthday, 1 year later. She threw them out of her garden, and the most satisfying revenge story you'll ever watch. Comments were split, most overwhelmingly on my side. A few people thought I was too harsh. They're still your parents. But the balance tipped hard in my direction. My mother stopped leaving the house. Her social circle evaporated. Her closest friends quietly distanced themselves. My father's career took the hit, the bank pulled his name from the promotion list, and no one said why, but everyone knew. Caitlin was the biggest casualty. She'd left her live stream running during the confrontation. Her full meltdown was immortalized. Her carefully curated image of a classy, independent older sister disintegrated in hours. A week later, she quit her job. Moved to another city. I heard she'd had trouble keeping work since. People recognized her. But that was their story now, not mine. After that day, I went on. I grew the business. The farm expanded to nearly 10 acres. 6 full-time employees. My flowers shipped to 3 states. I have contracts with a boutique hotel chain and a coffee shop network. I built a small agritourism center where people come to pick flowers, take photos, drink tea. I bought a house. A little wooden thing, 10 minutes from the garden. In the front yard, I planted a bed of those purple-red dahlias. They come up every year like fire. In the back, a glass sunroom where I sit in winter, reading, watching the snow. Grandma passed when I was 22. Quiet, in her sleep. I was there. She held my hand until the end. Her last word was a whisper, "Flowers." I buried her at the south edge of the garden, ringed by her dahlias. Every year when they bloom, I sit there and talk to her. My parents and I, we never reconciled, not really. We send Christmas cards. Brief, vague. Hope you're well. We see each other at relatives' weddings, funerals. Nods, small talk, then apart. Strangers who used to share a last name. One autumn, I was locking the garden gate when I saw my father's old Ford. He was standing by the fence, hands in his coat pockets, watching the field. He saw me, stiffened, and walked over. "Ella," he said. "Just came to see how you're doing." He looked old. White hair, stooped shoulders. His eyes were the same, shiftless, evasive, but there was something else there. Maybe regret. Maybe just exhaustion. "The flowers look good," he said, his voice dry. "They're Grandma's strain," I said. He nodded, stared at the ground. The wind moved between us. "Your mother, she's sorry," he said. "She just can't say it. She comes out here sometimes. She watches from the road. She never comes in." I followed his gaze to the old oak just beyond the fence. I'd seen her. Green coat, last summer. 20 minutes, then drive away. "I know," I said. "But she never crossed the fence." He had no answer for that. "Dad," I said, "it's getting dark. You should go." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he turned toward his car. At the door, he stopped, not facing me. "I was a coward," he said, barely audible. "I'm sorry, Ella." He got in and drove away. I stood there until the taillights vanished into the dusk. The wind was cold, and my eyes stung. I turned, locked the gate, and walked home down the gravel path. The dahlias were blooming. Their scent was thick in the evening air, mixed with earth and grass. My phone buzzed. "Megan, Tara and I are coming over Saturday for a cookout. You're making your potato salad." I typed back, "Fine. But you're bringing the beer." Another buzz. "Carter pickled some cucumbers. Bringing them tomorrow." I smiled. "Still working on the last jar." He sent a thumbs up emoji. The man was 78 and used emojis more often than I did. I opened my front door. Warm light filled the little living room. On the windowsill, a vase of dahlias, purple-red, glowing in the lamp's glow. I poured a glass of water, sat on the couch, and looked out at the darkening garden. The greenhouse silhouettes caught the moonlight. The dahlias rustled in the breeze, like someone whispering. That canceled birthday. That cold street at 2 in the morning. That leaky toolshed. Those hands that had bled and healed and bled again. All of it, right here. In this garden. In this life. I raised my glass to the window, and I smiled. The flowers had bloomed.